So you can find Black and Empowered Podcast on YouTube and on Dr. Isha Metzger's website. So click on her handle, go under Black and Empowered Podcast. And you can find an ample amount of podcast episodes where we're talking all things Black, all things wellness, and all things Black excellence. See you there.
And show any of these options when I first
We
logged
love
on.
it.
Okay. Now you can start.
In five, four, three, two, one. And this is right after Jamal said, do not make any loud noises. I'm going to be the one who makes all the loud noises and makes you work so hard to find an equilibrium in the sound. But y'all, you guys, welcome back to the Black and Empowered Podcast. I am so excited to continue our Mirror series. We are back here today with episode 3 of the Mirror series. This series is all about exploring the journeys that shape us, both personally and professionally, through meaningful conversations with others. I have been talking to dear friends of mine who mirror my spirit. I call them my soulmates. We have been sharing our stories. We've been talking about our journeys that really, hopefully, you guys have been able to see yourselves and recognize yourselves through our conversations as well. So today, we want to continue this series where we've been asking questions about things like how do we stay grounded and authentic in the middle of life's many different demands and transitions? How do we make those transitions in mindful ways and intentional ways that not only serve our purpose, but give back to others? How do we make sure that we are sharing our trajectories and our journeys in a way that inspire others to not just follow in our footsteps, right, but to make their own impact in their own ways? So I am very, very, very excited to have with us today a dear friend of mine, a superstar psychologist. We call her the Harriet Tubman of research, in that she has set herself free from the confines of academia and she is now operating as a superstar entrepreneur. I also call her the Olivia Pope of racism because, baby, if you have a huge issue, this lady who I'm about to introduce to you all is the one to help you solve that issues. Her name is Dr. Maryam Jernigan. We can give a little bit of our origin story here shortly. But I want to just introduce you guys to Dr. Jernigan and have her tell you who she is and where she comes from before we jump into today's episode. Dr. Miriam, thank you for joining me. Introduce yourselves to our guests, please.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. I woke up this morning excited about this conversation. It was something I was looking forward to. So, I am Dr. Maryam, as you noted. I am currently, I will say, living outside of Atlanta, Georgia. So, in the state of Georgia, but actually born and raised in the Northeast in Massachusetts. I finished my doctoral training in Massachusetts. I actually started my higher education journey in the South. So I just returned back to what I felt like was a place where I could be sort of culturally and personally grounded. By training, I'm a licensed psychologist. We can talk more about that journey, but certainly started out being trained as a child, adolescent, family psychologist, also a former professor, as you noted, mostly in departments of psychology and psychiatry. But I would say my primary role, as you noted, is firmly as a consultant, both organizational as well as someone who offers professional development training.
Literally, y'all, think Olivia Pope, how she came in and swept in and solved all those problems for the big name people and the big organizations. That is what Dr. Jernigan does. And hold on, you said you are currently in Atlanta. You better not be moving. What are you talking about?
I just met, for some folks know that I'm from the East Coast. They're
Oh,
like, "Where?
okay.
Oh my God." And I'm like, no, I'm
I
in
was about to,
Georgia. now,
I was about
now,
to say, I know this not how you doing
no,
that
no.
and telling me. So, okay, so you did mention you're from the Northeast, so I could tell people that's how we met. I was on postdoc at Yale, and when I tell you again, her reputation precedes her. Everyone was just talking about Dr. Jernigan, Dr. Jernigan, Dr. Jernigan. I was in public, and everyone was just singing her praises. And I came back to Georgia, much like Miriam did, because I went to undergrad here and I had my first faculty position here. And as soon as I started looking around, here go the same name, Dr. Jernigan, Dr. Jernigan, Dr. Jernigan. So I said, you know what? Let me reach out to this lady. Let me make a connection. We had lunch, and I promise you, in one lunch, she fixed my entire life. She has inspired me since then. She has hired me since then, but she continues to inspire me to not only do the work that I'm doing, but just to think outside of the confines of academia, y'all. So you are so blessed to have some time with Dr. Jernigan here today. I don't even know why, y'all. She messaged, we talk all the time about just life, and she just messaged me and said, I need to come on this podcast. So what I will tell y'all is that when Dr. Jernigan says something, you make it happen. And this shows that there is a specific reason for you guys to be blessed with her today. So I hope that you listen up and take from this conversation all of the gems that I am sure she's going to drop. I even have some questions because I'm going to take advantage of her as a consultant. I don't have the fees that she likes to charge, but I have built it into today's episode. So I'm gonna get my question in. Um, but what I will say in terms of, let's just kick off the show. We are warmed up, but let's just do like one or two quick rounds of how we like to start off the show, which is the song association challenge. It's one of the things that I like to do most. I see your face. We will do it quickly. So this is just to say that I'm gonna say a word, and then you'll get 10 seconds to just sing a song that has a word
You want
in
me
the
to
lyrics.
sing a song?
I mean, you can rap a song, you can, recite it. Um, but yes, it is to get our vocals warmed up and just to, loosen up the atmosphere. And then you can give me a word in return. If you want to go first, you can go first, or I can give you a word first, whoever.
Let me try it first. Let me try.
Okay, exactly. Yeah. Get the pressure out the way. Your word, I already know what your word was gonna be because I'm looking at you, and what else could your word be? Your word today is boss.
There's a tune in my head. Is it Khalees that I'm bossy that had the
We
song?
can take it.
Yes, that's what immediately actually the tune came into my mind. I'm bossy. Yes.
I accept. I accept. I don't know the lyrics. She got a lot
I
of
don't
lyrics
either.
on that song. Dun, 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 track. Dun, 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 well, I'm about to say, okay, we're gonna give it to you because you had it in the song title. That is going to get you that point. Okay, okay, okay. Jamal's gonna edit in some round of applause. We've been talking about editing, so yay! All right. Give me a word. Let me focus.
See, I have two words that come to mind, but I'm actually curious. What honestly, the word for me is mother or mother. Yeah, mother.
I was gonna say, Mama, okay, mother. Mother.
No, it's a hard one.
Wait, maybe that's father. Mother. Mother, do you hear me? Maybe that's father. I don't think I have one for mother. Do you have one? No, I'm out. That's got to be 10 seconds. What's mother?
No, I'm with you. It's some version of mother. It's either mama or
Right. If you take mama, then we'll just do boys to men mama. Done. Easy. Okay, okay, cute. I love that. Okay, okay, okay. Great warm up, y'all. Okay, so let's jump into today's episode and really start. Let's start with just kind of your journey into psychology as a field. So, how did you get into psychology? What drew you to it? And what impact did you want to make initially?
Yeah, so this is a story that I've told a long time ago. I think when I was in graduate school. So I am the daughter of a Vietnam veteran. And I grew up watching my dad go to vet centers. And like in hindsight, he was actually going to groups, right? Like group therapy or group sessions in vet centers with other veterans to process, right? All the things. And I remember, I just have memories. I'm one of four children, family of six, and I just have memories of. I distinctly remember going, like, picking dad up, right, walking in, saying hi, right, to all the other vets that were a part of the group. And I will say, the groups he attended were for Black veterans. That will become important. And I just remember having this sort of thought of like, these are grown men they seem like they're sad, like they're coming out, right? It's meaningful, but something's all, and I was just like, okay, so maybe if somebody had helped them earlier in life, right, they wouldn't have to end up here. Like it was the curiosity of why are they here? I didn't know anything about war, right? I was too young to really understand, certainly post-traumatic stress disorder, like what they were talking about and discussing. But for me, it was kind of like we've got grown people who need to come into a space to do some kind of work or healing, and I, again, lots of veterans events. So I would, like, on Memorial Days, like, see the sadness of these grown men. But for me it was, well, why not just help them earlier in life, then they won't have to do this. And so those, in hindsight, that was the foundation for me of also just wanting to focus on kids. And same rationale, right? So obviously now, right, I understand the full story. There's a different context, but for me, it really was about prevention, or what we would call prevention. The idea of, like, working with folks earlier in the lifespan can maybe prevent some of the issues that they have, right, as adults. And so I didn't have the language of psychology, but my parents will also share the story of, like, I must have been in elementary school really thinking about wanting to go into a profession where I could sit with people, talk to them, and help them. And just over time, right, through education and exposure on my own, honestly, you know, learned certainly the language of psychology. So I went into undergrad knowing I wanted to be a psychology major, knowing that I needed to get a PhD if I wanted to practice. Very focused, like going into high school, even, like, this is the
I'm gonna say I haven't heard this story from your parents, but I remember you posted something on Instagram. It was like a throwback of like a
high
middle
school,
school
high school.
yearbook.
Yeah.
Okay, and they were asking like, "What do you want to be?" Baby, when I tell you, it's exactly who you are today. So yes, you have known for a very long time exactly what your calling was and the
Yes.
impact that you want to have.
Mhm.
Wow, wow. So how did you get? Well, you're free from academia, but how did you even get into academia if you already knew, right, that your focus was to do this work with people early on?
Yeah, I think, I knew, or at least developed the language of psychology. I could not have predicted the journey. And so for
Hmm.
me, it was the training, right? So yes, it's like, okay, you've got to have an advanced degree. I didn't know what that meant, right? Even coming out of undergrad, like what it takes to get into a doc program. I had some wonderful Black mentors. I am very
Hmm.
fortunate at every stage of my training, undergrad, master's, and doctoral training. But over through those experiences, right, I learned about research because I knew you need to do research, or at least my advisor told me in undergrad, you got to do research if you want to get into grad school. And
Hmm.
so just watching my professors, them actually being very transparent with me, then getting into my doc program, and my PhD program was very clear. They trained you, right, to be a clinician. They trained you to do research, and they trained you to teach. It was a requirement that we taught, because at the time that I entered my program, you had to have a master's degree to apply, which meant in your second year, you were teaching master's level clinicians. And so it was just kind of this thing where I actually did not want to go. I've said this before. I did not want to go into academia. I didn't see that, right, as my
It
call.
was just a part of how things are set up.
It was a part of how things were set up. And the
Yeah.
feedback that I received from my
Hmm.
professors is, A, we need you, Black woman, right, in academia. And B, you do this and you can do it well. And for me, it was easy. I'll put in air quotes, in that it was like, okay, I like research. I do like these things. I can do this.
Hmm.
But there was something in my soul that said it wouldn't be a forever thing. So, like, I agree.
Wow.
It was just
Yeah.
sort of the natural trajectory of
Yeah.
finishing requirements, doing a research postdoc, applying for jobs, and here I am.
Hmm. Hmm. So, at what point in your academic journey did you realize, okay, I need to step outside of this traditional academia and traditional kind of clinical, case by case, person by person model of providing care?
You are actually helping me in real time put together the pieces of my story by asking these questions. So, again,
Wow.
much like the psychology piece, I started my consulting business as a fifth year doc student. Um,
Mm.
it was the research and the clinical work that I was doing in this geographic area that led to systems initially of education. So school districts and schools requesting that I do trainings for their educators, because my work really focused on, I had a particular interest in the experiences of youth of color, particularly Black girls at that time. And so clinically, right, and the community, that was the population that I worked with, but also in terms of my research, really looking at the experiences of youth of color, particularly in academic settings. And
Wow.
natural evolution of speaking up and meet, et cetera, that led to that. And it was my wonderful Black woman advisor that said, you need to start a business. And so as an
Wow.
academic, what she was telling me is, even if you go into academia, here's the business model for the fact that people, appreciate what you have to offer. You have a growing area of scholarship, and here's how you apply that, right? Into
Yeah.
outside of the walls of academia. And so over time, it grew. Like, I've always had the business on the side. Honestly, folks would sort of come to me word of mouth, and I would do it alongside my postdoc, do it alongside, my early faculty positions. And it just grew to a point for me. And
Where you
again,
couldn't do
I
both.
never felt settled, right? It was always for
Mm-hmm.
me. My partner reflected to me one time that you seem happier when you're in the
Mm.
applied space than when the
Mm.
semester is starting, even though you enjoy the students. He's like, you shift, right? Like, your attitude will be different.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh,
Wow.
I was
Wow.
happier in the applied space. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, the opportunities became so great, which honestly, because you and I talk. I'm a spiritual person. I believe in sort of
Yeah.
universal energy, and the prayer to the universe was, make this clear. Like, what is the
Mm.
decision making point? And the opportunities became so great that there really wasn't a comparison.
You couldn't hold them both. And I think one of the recurring things about kind of this mirror series even is, yes, there's one thing to have a calling, and then there's another thing when you see yourself being called, right? Like, you are getting people who are beating down your door, like, I need this training, I need this consultation, I need that. And you're like, okay, but I have a job. And you are at some point forced. I remember when you came to that decision where you're like, listen, I can't do both anymore. And the impact that I want to make based on, yes, my calling, I'm being called somewhere else. And that pull was so evident. And I appreciate that even early on, you had those, like you just talked about, those mentors who, again, mirror, they illuminated that within you and said, yes, you're here in academia and your impact is out there. So maybe for a while, and what you just described, it was years of juggling both until you felt comfortable enough to jump into that space that you'd been called into from the beginning. And I think that a lot of times people who listen to this show are thinking about, right, like, how do I juggle these multiple identities? And sometimes you do have to hold two until you feel like you're able to let go of one for the other. Um, so at what point in this trajectory, so you started off on very early on holding both, right? Being in academia and having this kind of entrepreneurial mindset. At what point did Carter come into the picture? Carter's her son, y'all.
So
He's how old is Carter?
right now he's 9.
Girl, I was about to say 6.
You
Carter's
missed a year.
9.
Oh, he's died. He's died.
If people stay at the same age when I first meet them. Carter Carter is 9.
Yes, he's
Yeah, he's absolutely 9 years old. Okay, so take us back to that 9 years ago. Where were you in terms of your professional identity, and how did Carter, right? We're integrating both personal and professional. How did he impact that in your trajectory?
so that's really real. When I became pregnant with Carter, I had finished my second postdoc. I was in Connecticut.
Okay. Okay.
I had just started my first tenure track
Mm,
full-time position. Prior to that, I was a assistant clinical professor in an academic medical setting. And so this was a full-time tenure track position in the Department of Psychology at a women's college in Connecticut. And simultaneously, I had become licensed and started a private practice that was 10 minutes from my institution. So in my mind, I was going to do both, right? So position that to your point about calling, I did not
mhm.
actually seek out. I had prior to that applied for academic positions because it was what was encouraged. Like, well, it's here,
Mhm.
apply for them. I'm
Of
like,
course,
oh
of course.
no, no, no. This one, I don't say it's by happenstance because I don't believe in that, but it was that I was actually applying to join a group practice. One of the women in that group practice was a professor at the institution. I submitted my CV for the group practice. She, unbeknownst to me, passed it along to the institution. They asked me to come.
I said, actually, yeah,
Right. So
yeah.
those two things happened at once, and I got pregnant. So
Okay.
that was say like an academic year by like that next May, and then accepting that faculty position. I was so nervous. That's why I made that face, because I think this is the real part of the conversation folks don't talk about. But I remember saying, oh my goodness, I'm pregnant and I'm about to start my first position. Like, how will the institution handle this? How do I navigate this personally and professionally? Oh my gosh, I've got a private practice. I've got clients. What happens when I have to take parental leave? Like, it was real, right?
Yeah.
Both getting
Yeah.
pregnant, also just that process as a woman, as a Black woman. Like, is this going to be, a healthy, viable pregnancy? And then navigating the career part.
Wow.
At points for me felt stressful. But I remember, because we met, when you talked earlier, I remember when you called me, I was in my office, I think, just coming back from parental leave. When we first had our first phone call, I remember things. I was like,
Yeah.
really nice and cool. Like, it was just a natural
Wow.
connection. When you call, you're
Wow.
like, I want you to be my, and I'm like, me? Why?
First of all, yeah.
Total foggy brain. So in Connecticut at that time, when I had Carter, I will say I put my household on notice that I would not be raising my child in the Northeast. So at the same time, I'm starting this new job. I have this private practice that I'm starting as well, but I'm like, okay, I got under 5 years, right? By the time he hits kindergarten, etc., I don't know that I want to raise this child in the Northeast. Yeah. So it was being present, laying some foundation and groundwork and trying to all the things in early career. And then also, this personal piece that was kind of like, okay, what do I do?
So tell me how you figured that out with the now what do I do? So you came and
Yes,
you
I did. Yeah, I certainly, it was, and I say this not to cause fear in anyone, but to validate for many of us the micro decisions that birthing persons in particular have to make, right? And so I'm remembering and having my own kind of flashbulb memories of going on parental leave. I actually had a traumatic postpartum, like a post birth experience that extended my leave. I remember having
wow.
to navigate because it was an institution that didn't have really good faculty things. So if my son was born in February, they wanted me to, like, I went into labor the night before my last lecture. So like I was trying to work up until right the leave, and then I needed extended leave, but they expected me to come back in the same semester. Like, it was a mess. So that was stressful. Private practice had leveled out where I had saved up that income so I wouldn't feel like I was missing out. But I think the postpartum experience and coming back is what really then led me to be in a position where it was kind of like, oh, okay, let's think about moving geographically. And I actually want to do consulting and private practice when we move. But yet again, another faculty position was presented to me. I didn't seek it. And so it was like, okay, I'm going to go be a visiting professor. I'm going to transfer my license to Georgia. We go get this consulting going. That's it. And the reality was, I got there a month into that faculty position, the visiting faculty position, and a month later, the department chair was like, "We'd like to extend an opportunity hire." And I was like, "What is that? What is an opportunity hire?" Well, we know we're going to be a tenure track position, so we're just going to go through a process that our institution does. I'll submit, send me some teaching letters, et cetera. So a month into the visiting 3-year appointment for a visiting professorship, they converted my position to tenure track, and I was like, "Okay, God." Like, I'm trying to get out of academia. Like, what is happening? Right? Literally, what is happening? Why do you keep putting me back here? They're not giving away tenure track positions, so this must mean something. So I actually spent that time when we transitioned to Georgia, which I enjoyed, like building my research lab, building a community, and also establishing some, community and research relationships with other.
And mentoring, you did a ton of mentoring and you helped set up a program. Yeah, so there is something about making yourself so valuable to where, people want to hold on perhaps a little longer than they should. But in terms of your trajectory, and we'll call it destiny, right? The impact that you were making, you were able to make that lasting impact on academia while transitioning into the space to where you are now, where you're impacting corporations and high impact individuals. You're going to help testify in court. You're helping to create this impact in this variety of different ways.
Yeah, and I would say all of those experiences in hindsight, because I remember there was absolutely a point in time where I, had the equivalent of a temper tantrum in terms of like, I don't know if I want to like retire in academia. Like, what is this about? I did this research, I did the clinical postdoc, like I've done all this, I've got all these skills. Where is it going?
Mhm.
And in hindsight, the time in academia, and I say this to my own mentees, absolutely allowed for my student loan repayment, like to the date, like the exact dates and the amount of time made me eligible, right? I'd done some research based student loan repayment, which was critical for me, let's be clear, in terms of my educational journey. But whereas I questioned in the moment, like, I want to do this over here, in hindsight, that time was formative for two reasons. It allowed, right, for that investment in myself to be forgiven in terms of my financial investment in academia. And it also is what people utilize and leverage in terms of where I am today. So it was those early publications. It
It
was,
got your expertise, it
yes,
got your
that folks who
reputation built. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I say that as well for folks that want to, particularly want to do applied or consulting work. We don't stop publishing, right? You don't stop doing the things you're trained to do, because that actually does have its benefit in terms of business as well. People want to work with someone that they feel is credible, right? Who's done the work, who can show up, right? Has done the research, et cetera. So those early 15 or so years in academia were really essential.
Yeah, and we talk about it, right, in terms of just thinking about professional and personal identities, right? A part of us, we might stay in academia because there's guaranteed health insurance, right? And you have to, right, figure that out in terms of, okay, if I'm stepping out on my own, this is also an additional responsibility that I now have to take up. So, yes, for those of you who are thinking about juggling multiple roles, these are all things that we have to consider in terms of our professional and personal identity, right? Having a child. Okay, now I can't just think about extra money in terms of traveling and vacation. No, it's daycare and right these real expenses that come up. Can you talk a little bit more about parenting in terms of your professional identity as well, how being a mother has really impacted the type of work that you do, the type of work that you accept, or the way that you're able to do that work?
Yes, I will. A definitely full circle moment for me, right? And that I started out thinking about the experiences of children and youth, and now I have one. So there's
Hmm.
that, especially around the identity work that I do for youth of color in particular. But I would say the first thing that came to mind when you asked the question was those early years where I felt like I was in a brain fog, right? No one, I don't know that I was fully prepared for the reality.
Mommy brain?
Yes, the
Yeah.
physiological impact, right, of carrying and giving birth to life, and then the aftermath
Hmm.
of that.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
as someone
Hmm.
who was used to just working, right, and doing what I wanted to do, napping when I wanted to, staying
And
up all
everything's
night,
clear and organized, right? Your
yeah,
schedule is
3 days on a grant.
consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ooh, those were the good old days, right?
Yes, and then the reality hits, right? My child does not care about this deadline, and so you've got to
Hmm.
figure it out, lady. What it
Yeah.
boils down to, I mean, I have the images, even as my son got older, like of him, I'd be on my laptop or trying to sneak and close the laptop. Like, what do you? We're not interested. Boom, like laptop closing. It's like,
Ooh, I wish Carter was here because
yeah,
Carter is the one thing Carter gonna do is speak his mind. Mommy, you've been working too much today. Mommy, I need you to pay attention to me. He will literally tell you what has happened and what he needs in response. So we know that about Carter. Okay, so he
yeah.
was
He was,
pulling
even
you,
as a
right?
young
Rightfully
child.
so.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he was clear about, like, he's like, okay, my mommy works, but at some point, it's the weekend, it's the evening. I don't care what you're doing or what the deadline is. Like, it's time for us
Wow.
to be together. So that adjustment for me, even again in our field and in academia, we've got to have time to write. You know what that's like.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, now I've got to find some place outside of the home, right? Whereas I could open a laptop, maybe sit at the dining room table. That's not a reality for me. So also figuring out for myself, how do I work now, right? So that I can
Right. Wow.
prioritize and be with my family, and also, right,
How
still
can I work more efficiently? I know we used to work and watch Netflix and YouTube at the same time and just take all day and do it leisurely. And now it's like, no, no, no. I have between now and
right,
2:30
right.
to do this. Like I am working. Right. Yeah. So even the way that you work has to change. Yeah.
Yeah, so those, I feel like those were the major adjustments in terms of just my own transition to mother. The childcare, the childcare piece, like you said, the expenses of it, the realities of healthcare. Now, I will say, I am partnered, right? That is not to be underestimated for me. Parenting should be, it is a team sport for us. And also, like you said, things like transitioning to entrepreneurship we could have a conversation about, his insurance, right, covering the family, those kinds of things that I know will be considerations for folks. Same thing, even in terms of the parental leave. I was stressed out because my values are, listen, I need to contribute, et cetera. I'm used to contributing to the household.
And you like the work that you do,
Yeah.
right?
And my partner though was like, we're good, right? And it's like, no. So having, right, an additional income, an additional person certainly has been instrumental in terms of my transition and my ability now to sort of say, like, I need to write. Going on a writing retreat, you got this. Those kinds of, but it was a huge adjustment, especially for someone who worked very differently before I had a child. And then I would just say my postpartum experience is what led me, when I was in academia, to starting my Black mother research and conversation. I used to always say,
Wow. Yeah.
there's so much we don't tell women in general, or birthing persons in general, about being a parent or caretaker or mother, that I wish people would be more transparent and honest about. And I didn't feel like I had that. And then on top of that, because of my health experience in the healthcare system, I started doing research on, Black women. We had a project called Black Mama. I actually became a certified doula. So I was like, what do these Black women know? What do these women know that is saving Black women's lives?
Yo, Miriam,
Yes.
I'll cry right now. I need y'all to know the perfect care this lady took of me when I was pregnant. Yeah. That doula certification was from God. But that is amazing that you have used your gifts and your calling in this way to be so intentional about giving back every step along your journey.
Yeah. So, and I feel like now my dissertation talked about the importance of racial literacy for children in early childhood,
Wow.
and resistance. And that's the full circle moment for me. Literally, I have a text message from my mentor and advisor, Dr. Janet Helms, who says, "So, how does it feel to be doing the same thing you were doing years ago? Are you upset? Are you, because her whole point was like, it's still relevant, it's still important.
Yeah.
I know."
Yeah.
Which Maryam didn't
Yeah.
remember the moment. She was like, "You were doing this in 2008." That's the text message. I saved that text message for that reason. It was validation.
Wow, you called it. What'd you call it? Your full circle moment. We call those our mirror
I
moments.
love it.
Wow,
Everyone
and
with
wow,
mirror
to
moments. I like
have the great Dr. Helms be your mirror who illuminated that within you and for you to say, right? Like this has been, and there are some, I'm talking to the general audience, right? Like there are some places in academia who look down on me search.
yeah.
There are others, right? Those of us who value that me search and the research that we're able to do based on our personal trajectories, our personal experiences, and our personal callings to now take that and say, how can I impact with data, with science? How can I contribute to this story, reduce these disparities, prevent other people from going through what I went through, or show them how to advocate for themselves in response? That is so important that you had a mentor who encouraged that and reminds you of that along the way.
No, and that really was it for me. It's like a Dr. Maryam with a PhD in this healthcare system, like living out the research that I had read, right? All the health disparities research, clinical research I was doing. I was in that moment both vulnerable and certainly experiencing, right, those things that I had written about for other folks. So for me, it made sense, like you said, to really think about how can I amplify this, given my experience, professionalism, potential platform to do so.
Wow, that is so important. And I'm so glad again that you had that support along the way because otherwise, we can get lost along our journeys. We can spend way more time in spaces that we aren't supposed to be in. Some people get, even you talked about your dissertation, right? Like some people have faculty members who shape their dissertation research questions. And otherwise, right? Like to have someone who says, what are you experiencing? What's impactful for you? Or if you come with this question, they support that and they help again illuminate the process and illuminate the way for you. So that is so great. I'm so glad that you had that opportunity and that you're able to share that with others, right? If you're looking for a mentor, look for one who's not saying you have to come be a mini me. Look for one who talks to you about your identity and what it is that you want to do in terms of impact so that they can support you along that journey. And when I say mentor, that could be a champion, that could be somebody who you just go knock down on their door, who like Miriam, I heard about her and I called her and I said, hey, you're gonna be my mentor. You're gonna help me. And that's how these relationships form when they are right, when you find that mutual impact and that mutual connection. So important.
Agree. And not to be for me, it's just don't. I always say to my mentees, I don't need another me. You don't need another
Mm,
me. Who are you? right? Because there's so much work to be done. Let's talk about your interests. Let's talk about what you desire to do, and if there's something I can do to assist with that, I absolutely will. Because my goal is always, I don't want it. I don't want for future generations to take as long as I did, right? So if there are things that I learned along the way that can make someone else's journey quicker, right, to kind of get to an outcome, that's really the goal.
Miriam, so now I'm about to be selfish for a little bit because I know that a lot of the work that you do is around consulting. I know that you are very intentional and very protective as a mother, right? So I'm talking about your professional job, but also your personal identity. I know that Carter, if he had the problem at school, he knows to come home and to call you. You've given me examples of that when he's stopped in the moment, like, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to call my mom or I'm going to call my dad. And he knows, right, that he has an advocate. And I think that that's so important. And selfishly, I just want to just talk to you about something that literally happened today. Our listeners know that I have one kid, but I also, prior to having my biological son, I have Kobe, who is my sister's kid, who you guys don't know. Kobe just started kindergarten last week. So he is in week 2 of kindergarten, right? And today, my sister texted in the group chat while I was in a faculty meeting and said that Kobe got in trouble at school today for making a gun with his fingers and pointing it at a classmate. And my sister's asking me, how does she handle it? And Kobe's obviously in trouble. I'm sitting here like, first of all, it's imaginative play. Second of all, we don't play like that at home. I don't know where he would have seen that. We do need to talk to him about the seriousness of, right, quote unquote, guns in school. It was a pretend gun. But then hearing the rest of what she was saying as she was texting, she said, Kobe said he didn't even point a gun at the girl. He just pointed at her. And she said it was a gun. This girl, Kobe is a black boy, of course. This girl is not a black girl. And that the teachers just assumed that he pointed a gun. They didn't ask any questions. And all of a sudden he was in trouble and didn't know why.
Gotcha.
So I'm talking to my sister about, showing him that yes, it's serious, but not making a big deal about punishing him for a behavior that one, he is able to clearly say that is not what I did. That is not what happened. So how do we show this little black boy that we believe him and we advocate for him? And how do we make sure that we can go back to school and he not have a reputation as some bad black boy, right? Like what advice do you give not only to my sister but to black parents of black boys about entering into school systems that already have implicit and sometimes these I would say explicit biases against them just based on what I would just describe as just innocent right childhood behaviors?
So I'm gonna tell you right now, we're gonna do a whole follow up, you and me, because it's a
I
whole
already
other
know.
conversation about this topic that, as you know, I'm very
Yeah.
passionate about. Let's approach this from a couple of different standpoints. We're going to look at this developmentally. We're going to look at this from a systems perspective, and we're going to look at it from an informed, like critically, sort of examine the race related, sort of context here. What I would say developmentally to the school. When I say to your sister, I agree with you. This is not about punishing Kobe. My first rule of thumb is yes, you engage the child because children we can't both call them truthful and then not believe them, right? So children
Hmm.
will, right, sort of respond. It's not to say that children never tell fibs, right, or lies, but the first thing I do as a Black mother, right, with my child is to, okay, you're giving me information, school, teacher, whomever, educator. Okay, thank you. And let me talk to my child. I would engage my child. In this case, Kobe has said, what is it? Like, I did not. I simply pointed. And so for me, I believe my child. Now, that doesn't mean I believe him without asking other questions, but it's kind of like, okay, so do you understand? But I also engage him. Do you understand what the school is saying you did when you pointed? Can you show me what you did? Right? It's not, and not in an interrogation manner, but really to gain context. My next intervention is with the school, and it's in an inquisitive way. So can you help me understand how we arrived here? This is the phone call that I received, which alleges this. My child is saying, and has no idea why he, was in trouble, saying that they pointed. And I am a parent, right, who engages, talks to, and believes my child. So let's walk through the process that occurred from the teacher, from how did the teacher learn about did anyone witness this, right? because you also need the school system to understand that you're both involved, and aware, and not just sort of going to accept, right, sort of any and everything, right, that has been stated. I would say from a developmental standpoint, even if that was the case, does that warrant going to an office and potential suspension? Absolutely not. It's kindergarten. And my question to educators and to parents and to anybody in the lives of a child is, how do you facilitate the behavior you desire, not punish one that you have deemed inappropriate? In this case, the inappropriate
Right.
for me is questionable until I have more information. And then on top of that, you have my concern that Kobe is sitting here saying, I don't know why I'm in trouble. Now I've got adults and people looking at me. How is he going to understand the context, what's happening, what he should not do? And how does this inform his interpersonal interactions with his peers, right? Kind of going forward. So as a
And
mom,
his teachers.
yes, I was gonna say, so as a mom, I'm
Hmm.
on alert. I'm
Hmm.
also, I'm just gonna be Maryam, not Dr. Maryam, the mama at this point. My interactions with the school becomes critically important because I want them to know that I'm involved and that I'm invested in the most positive, inclusive experience for my child. And so I'm a little concerned and want to learn more about the process, because I certainly don't want to assume that we're going to replicate the current standards and practices that we see that Black boys experience. And honestly, Aisha, that's the language I use. I'm putting you on notice,
Hmm.
right? That I am aware
That
of
I'm
what
making sure he's not being disproportionately penalized, that you guys aren't jumping to punishment as opposed to understanding the situation, that we are having conversations. Okay.
well, but
Okay.
developmentally, again, if a child is making a gesture
Hmm.
that you feel is problematic or concerning, you can absolutely communicate that. But in kindergarten, how are we
Hmm.
facilitating the behaviors and the engagements that we desire? Why are you punishing a child? Because even if a child is
Listen, Miriam,
not
I thought it was imaginative play. I'm telling her, like, tell him to play superheroes, tell him he could play in the kitchen. And then it turns out the baby was just pointing, right? Like, it's not even an issue of imaginative play. In my opinion, these biases that are coming out. Why didn't you guys ask, okay, what was happening? Tell me what the gun or the point looked like. You just assumed
well, how do we get the
that,
gun? Right. That's actually where
how do you get
how do we
the
get to
gun?
that language versus he pointed, was in her, like, again, help me understand what was witnessed, what was told. And then how do we, the goal, right? This is not about
It's
punishment,
to
right?
facilitate those positive behaviors,
Yes,
right?
the classroom. And yes, kindergarten has socio emotional goals, right, with regard to learning educational systems, et cetera. But this is week 2 of kindergarten. And so for me, yeah, there'd be an eyebrow raised, a conversation
Hmm.
happen at the school, because Kobe also needs to see you all show up,
That mommy's gonna advocate.
which is why
Yeah.
Carter knows I can talk to my parents even if I'm in the, and why
I asked
Carter
you
knows
this
that I'm
because
coming.
I remember you texting me again one day saying the teacher called you and told you that Carter was fidgeting, and you said, "Girl, hold on, let me go deal with this real quick because 5-year-olds fidget, or maybe he was 6 or 7. I don't know how old the baby was at the time, right? But
Yeah,
this is developmentally appropriate. Did he get his work done? Was he disrupting the class? Like, what is the issue that made you call me as opposed to better engaging my kid in the classroom, which is what it sounds like needs to be happening, right? So asking those questions in response, I think, is very important. And telling my sister, right, like be curious as opposed to just accepting what it is that these school professionals are saying, and let them know that not only am I curious, but we're having these conversations at home, and I'm going to come back to you and we're going to communicate, and maybe we need to have a parent teacher, and Kobe needs to be a part of this process. But right, yes, my kid is special, but it's not to say that he has a microscope placed on him and we're examining each of his behaviors, right? So
that's my
thank you for
concern with
that.
this
Thank
being
you
the
for that.
second
Yeah.
week of kindergarten. If this is right, the phone call, the assumption, we're going to interrogate that process. Nevertheless,
Yeah.
what we know as psychologists, cognitive psychology, right, all
Hmm.
the sort of notion is my concern for Kobe would be that one would become hyper sensitive or hyper vigilant. By one, I mean a teacher or so, an adult
Yeah.
in the building.
Yeah. Now everything he's
And
doing is an issue, right?
yeah. And so, yeah, for it's a systems issue to the degree that it's appropriate, involve him. And that for me is the foundation that my son now has, where he knows, even if I've done something, because again, he has done some stuff, I can talk to my parents. As we tell him, like, the truth is always going to be right, the best way to
Hmm.
best
Hmm.
understand. etc. But now he knows that, right? And now he knows that, yes, he has parents that aren't just going to believe someone else. Let me just say this to the parents. My child has absolutely been accused in almost every grade of something that has not happened. And how do I know that? Because in one case, the child, took it back. In the other case, in interrogating the process, in fact, the teacher didn't see that. The little girl said that didn't happen, but somebody else made an assumption. So as much as we would love to believe in the sort of idea of giving folks the benefit of the doubt, hear me when I say I have done this work long enough to know that people are people. And whatever biases and socialization they have shows up, and the school systems that children are in for youth of color are less than ideal. I mean, like if you sit with them, which I had for decades, and interviewed them, their engagements are less than ideal at a peer-to-peer level and at a peer-to-educator level, or even sort of
Yeah.
student to even leadership
Yeah.
level. I have more stories right on one end of the continuum than, it's not to say that there aren't wonderful educators, but I suggest that we critically interrogate history and understand the systems that our youth of color are in. So I'm not giving anybody the benefit of
Yeah.
the doubt, sadly.
Yeah. And when we talk about systems, right, this is elementary school, but when it's middle school and high school, now the other systems are involved. Y'all got resource officers
Yes,
and
you do.
police officers, and
Yes,
right, this is justice system involvement, especially when it comes to Black boys, right?
I know
And
everything.
prior to that, Black boys are in special education for behavioral issues, right? As opposed to these types of conversations that need to take place early on, just to nip it in the bud. So certainly the conversation I'm going to have with my sister, and we're going to continue this, right, is to, right, make her presence known, and to let Kobe also know, right, like people are here to advocate on your behalf. You can talk to mommy, you can talk to auntie, you can talk to Auntie Miriam too, right? These are conversations that we will continue having. So thank you, thank you, thank you for offering that advice. I just wanted to, you guys, we have these conversations all the time. I just wanted to kind of, one, because it just happened, but also to preview for you all the way that we are able to not only parent with intention, but for us as professionals, we are having to integrate that research, that work, in Miriam's case, that consultations that we are providing into not only our day-to-day lives, but the lives of others who are around us. So I appreciate you for leveraging your skills as both a mother and a psychologist, to just helping those of us in the community.
Yeah, and I would say to folks, like, take inventory of your network, because even when I was in grad school, I remember attending friends. We do psych testing, and so I remember actually showing up with a friend to a child's IEP meeting. Right, I was not pretending to be a psychologist, but I understood those tests and that assessment, and could ask questions, and also show as another concerned person, sort of refute some of what was there, at least ask the questions, right, to refute some of
Hmm.
what was in the report. But I often answer questions, DMs, etc. So again, I may not have the same level of involvement, right, as an external person or therapist, but leverage your networks. I have
Yeah,
educators who've read my research briefs that I have had to send to the school in my letters, right? Like, okay, take out, it's a little long, right? But I've had to say, like, okay, I'm having this issue. You're in education, in leadership. What's going to make sure that they respond? And they've told me who to send
yeah.
it to, how to send it. So leverage your networks for sure.
Wow. Well, I don't want to have our audience flood you with questions. We will give them an opportunity to leave questions. We do mailbag episodes, so I will allow them. But you just did mention DMs, and I know that you have a social media presence. So what I will ask, is in terms of your work and how you see your work moving forward, how are you envisioning your impact, being able to continue to meet, broader audiences, larger communities of people as well?
It is interesting. It is only very recently. This is why I said this is almost my own sort of therapy, this podcast today, because I'm able to kind of look back at my journey. I've been saying over the last couple of months, especially in this year that we've been having, what do I want? I'm a mid-career
Mm,
psychologist now. I sort of look at it as a twisty journey that I've been on. My first part was foundational, right? I was in academia, built the sort of foundation I needed as a psychologist, as a researcher, as a speaker, as an author, all of those things. My second phase was applied. Like you said, I wanted my impact to be different. I felt like I did my time training some of the next generation of mental health, behavioral health providers, and healthcare providers. I wanted to then go into systems and do policy, right, kind of work. I am also learning some lessons from that work, which I will continue to carry forward. But I feel like, Aisha, the last leg for me is actually going back to doing the work. Like, I want to be in a space and place and so well resourced that I can actually build the systems that are needed in the ways they need to be built. And what I mean by that is, right, we consult and it's like, here's your recommendations. And sometimes I
You
want
want to
to
build the place that
explain
already meets those recommendations.
from the
Wow.
start,
Yeah.
right? So it would be
Yeah.
wonderful to leverage my time now in an effort to think about what that looks like, whether that's the community center you and I have talked about, like a youth.
Girl, you know I was about to bring it back up because
Yes,
we can get
yes,
started
yes.
today. Yeah.
Those kinds, I
Yeah.
don't care if it's the elder something for Black mothers. For me, it's like what in all this research and all this work that we've done, where are the places and spaces, right, where people are most
Listen,
vulnerable.
we're going to have a gym in the back of that community center. We're going to talk about mental health, behavioral health, physical health. It's
Indeed,
coming. It's coming. It's coming.
indeed.
Wow. That's your answer.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, it's a different type of doing is what I hope
Yeah.
is what I'm envisioning and trying to manifest.
Yeah.
Like, okay. And so now I am
You say manifest. When I tell y'all, Miriam has said this, we have had this conversation, it's going to happen. It's happening, right? Like we manifest and we do the work. Manifest and grind, say Nipsey. But yeah, I'm so glad to hear that. Wow.
flexible.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So what's keeping you inspired and grounded lately?
Honestly, my ancestors and elders, and I don't say that in a superficial way. 2025 for a lot of folks, if they're less informed about history, has it's for all of us has been disorienting. And that's an understatement, right? Um, for me, what's keeping me grounded is talking to my elders and being reminded of the times, right? The history and what has been navigated when things seem unimaginable, right? So it's my reminder to continue to imagine and freedom dream a future that even if I can't see it, right? Even if it feels uncertain, even if it feels like it may not come to be, the importance of that because our ancestors did that and here we are on a podcast, right? Talking about the work that we're doing,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
To impact communities. They could not. Well, I guess they did, right? They imagined and hoped for and prayed for and burned sage, all the things for there to be a different future. And I think for me, given my work, given my personal values, in terms of thinking about just the humanity of everyone, that is what's keeping me grounded and also trying to behaviorally move back to a place of simplicity. So I remember growing up in my grandmother's garden. We go garden, right?
Mm.
Things that like
Come
living
on, community garden.
right.
Yeah.
Live in
Listen, we
a
need to type these
garden.
notes. It's a
I'm
beautiful space.
it is to spend time trying to connect with family. I've said to myself, I need to be better about continuing to be intentional and spending time with friends, the places that feed and nourish me. Because in my work,
Yeah.
I don't always have control over who's in the space. So in my personal life, I am trying to commit to being more intentional about the spaces I'm in, connecting with community in meaningful ways, and just trying to move away from I feel like the convenience and materialism and that we as a society really have gotten caught up in
Yeah.
that may have led to right some of where we are currently.
Wow. You are amazing, Dr. Miriam. You guys, I hope that you have just soaked up all of her wisdom, all of her knowledge in terms of being intentional in your career, allowing that to lead your personal life as well. Hopefully, you guys can see the intricacies between the two that Miriam has really so beautifully described for us today. I want you to really briefly, before we go, let people know what to expect from you, how to stay in touch with you. I'll talk to you guys about the mailbag episode. But Dr. Miriam, how can we find you online and on socials?
Yes, absolutely. So I am online. So if we start with, I would say my predominant presence is on Instagram, which is Mindfield, MINDFIEFIELD underscore Dr. J, Mindfield at Dr. J. And then on LinkedIn, I would say from a business perspective, I tend to share more sort of business oriented material on LinkedIn under Dr. Maryam Jernigan. Those are the two primary places where you can find me. You can certainly Google my name and
Hire her, y'all. She does consultations. Like I said, if you need her to come to
you.
school, if you need
Oh,
her to come to
marketing.
court, she flies out. Literally, think Olivia Pope. She come with the suit. Y'all see the hair. If you guys are watching, y'all see the lips. Like, she comes with it. You guys cannot fail if you have Dr. Jernigan on your side. I want to thank you so very much again for coming. I want our listeners, please stay tuned for the next episode of Mirror Mirror on the Black and Empowered podcast. We will continue unpacking those reflections that empower us to grow, thrive, and lead with purpose. I did mention a mailbag. So if you guys have any questions, any advice that you want from Dr. Miriam, from ourselves, from any of our previous guests, please send any questions that you have to theempowerlab@gmail.com. And we would love to hear from you. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, be one of our few people to rate us. We got like 12 ratings on Apple Podcasts. So please continue listening. Keep shouting out the Black and Empowered podcast and sharing it with your friends and family. We will see you next time.
So you can find Black and Empowered podcast on YouTube and on Dr. Isha Metzger's website. So click on her handle, go under Black and Empowered podcast. You can find an ample amount of podcast episodes where we're talking all things Black, all things wellness, and all things Black excellence. See you there.